3 months into the war in Gaza, South Africa leveled the gravest of accusations against Israel. It's committing genocide.
This killing is nothing short of destruction of Palestinian life. It is inflicted deliberately. No one is spared, not even newborn babies.
At the time the case opened at the International Court of Justice, or ICJ, in The Hague at the end of last year, the death toll in Gaza stood at over 21,000 Palestinians, a third of them children.
As we stand today, 1% of the Palestinian population in Gaza has been systematically decimated.
South Africa's lawyers argued that intentional genocide wasn't some fringe notion, but was being openly discussed by the leadership in Israel.
Israel's political leaders, military commanders, and persons holding official positions have systematically and in explicit terms declared their genocidal intent.
The actions of the Israeli forces seen as a reflection of the attitude of their leaders. Israel rejected the claim of genocide, saying it was Hamas who should be in the dock.
There is little beyond random assertions to demonstrate that Israel has or has had the specific intent to destroy, in whole or in part, the Palestinian people as such.
Israel also cast doubt on the actual number of casualties in Gaza, calling South Africa, quote, the legal arm of the Hamas terrorist organization.
As the applicant repeats, as many have, unverified statistics provided by Hamas itself, hardly a reliable source.
In late January, the court handed down a landmark judgment, issuing 6 binding provisional measures. Among them, that Israel immediately takes steps to prevent genocide and ensure the Strip receives life-saving humanitarian aid. When Israeli forces looked set to assault Gaza's southernmost city of Rafah, South Africa successfully applied to the court for an order to stop it. The ICJ's ruling was explicit. Israel must immediately halt the offensive on the city, where more than 1 million displaced Palestinians were sheltering. But Israel was defiant.
No power on earth will stop Israel from protecting its citizens and going after Hamas in Gaza.
The ICJ relies on the UN Security Council to enforce accountability, but critics say Israel has acted with impunity for decades.
It's imperative that the international community learn the lessons that ignoring international law when it comes to Israel and Palestine only begs the repetition of these awful events.
Human rights experts are warning that without the rulings of the ICJ being respected, the international rules-based order is on a knife's edge. Michael Appel, Al Jazeera.
Now, separate to the processes in the ICJ, in May this year, the International Criminal Court's chief prosecutor, Karim Khan, announced that he was applying for arrest warrants against top Israeli and Hamas leaders. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Defense Minister Yoav Gallant are wanted for war crimes and crimes against humanity linked to the war on Gaza. Khan also applied for warrants for Hamas's political and military leaders Ismail Haniyeh, Mohammed Deif, and Yahya Sinwar. Those allegations stem from the October 7th attack that killed hundreds of Israeli civilians. Sinwar, Hamas's new leader, could be the only one of the 3 still alive after Israel claims to have killed Deif in Gaza in mid-July. But Hamas never actually confirmed this. Israel also assassinated Haniyeh in the Iranian capital Tehran at the end of July. The ICC's pretrial chamber is yet to approve the warrants. All right, Triestino Mariniello joins us from Rome. It's good to have you with us. You're a law professor at Liverpool John Moores University and a member of the legal team representing Gaza victims before the ICC since 2020. Can we start there? How does that work, representing Gaza victims? Where do they fit into the cases currently before the ICC?
Well, first of all, many thanks for having me today. As legal representatives of victims, we bring before the International Criminal Court the views and concerns of the Palestinian victims for Gaza before the ICC. We bring evidence by submitting a number of communications to the court, also inviting the Office of the Prosecutor to widen the scope of the investigation. So we express the concerns on their behalf, and the concerns of victims, of Palestinian victims, are several, of course, at this stage. The ICC has so far failed to provide any sort of justice to Palestinian victims, and surprisingly is delaying any decision on the issuance of potential arrest warrants, enabling states, so political bodies, to interfere with the work of the court. And so far, after more than 4 months since the request of the prosecutor Karim Khan, the chamber has not taken any decision yet. This is in stark contrast to what the other chambers have done in other contexts, for instance in Ukraine, by issuing arrest warrants in a very few weeks.
I want to make sure I understand. The victims that you're representing, is that folded into the case and into the accusation against Benjamin Netanyahu and Yoav Gallant and Yahya Sinwar? Is that part of the same legal procedure or not?
Yes, I mean, the statute of the International Criminal Court enables legal representatives of victims to take part at the proceedings. This means also by submitting opening and concluding statements, by questioning witnesses, by bringing evidence. This happens in particular after the cases start, which means after the arrest warrants or summons to appear are issued.
Okay, so pause for a second, because the arrest warrant question is really important. The chief prosecutor of the ICC, Karim Khan, and you mentioned this, he requested arrest warrants against the Israeli Prime Minister, Defense Minister, and head of Hamas back in May. The court hasn't yet announced whether they are going to issue the arrest warrants. Is it normal for it to take that long? Why do we not know yet what the court's going to do?
Well, to be clear, it's quite surprising from a legal perspective. Just by placing this delay into the wider context, we know that the International Criminal Court, has also revealed by investigative journalists, has been under incredible pressure and also threats by different states and also by individuals. So this delay may be part of this, may be due to these pressures under which the court has been so far. So from a legal perspective, at least, there is no justification for this delay, at least in light of the gravity of the situation in the Gaza Strip, but I would say in the entire Palestinian territory, also in the West Bank and East Jerusalem. The court has decided, the judges in the pretrial chamber, to revise whether or not the court has jurisdiction on Israeli nationals. But on this, the court has already taken a clear decision in 2021. It has not been decided yet. We are waiting for a decision by the chamber.
Well, jurisdiction over Israel.
Yes, jurisdiction over Israeli nationals. Actually, the UK intervened into the proceedings, and they argued that in light of the Oslo agreements, the court cannot exercise any jurisdiction of Israeli nationals. Then the UK withdrew this request, but then the judges surprisingly allowed a number of states, organizations, experts, also the US, which are not state parties, Germany, to intervene into the proceedings and de facto challenging the jurisdiction of the court without having any legal standing to put in place this action at the ICC.
Okay, thank you. I'm with you. I momentarily conflated the ICC and the ICJ because there was also the same question at the ICJ of whether the court has jurisdiction over anything that Israel has done. And they ruled in their most recent decision over the summer that, yes, they did have jurisdiction. So, but thanks for clarifying that. What kind of redress can Gaza victims hope to get ultimately in a court like the ICC?
Well, in a court like the ICC, as I was saying before, first of all, victims, but I'm not just referring only to the victims of this military operation, also to victims of the 2014 military operation in Gaza Protective Age, because the court has jurisdiction for international crimes committed in Palestine since June 2014. So first of all, they have the right to participate, as I said before, to the proceedings, but they have also the right to apply for reparation in case in which the proceedings proceedings terminated, there will be a conviction of any individual. So reparation that can be asked by individuals or by organizations from Palestine.
Triestino Mariniello, a law professor at Liverpool John Moores University. Thank you very much for joining us this hour.
Thank you.